Welcome back everyone, it's Ben. I just watched the live-action How to Train Your Dragon, and I noticed quite a few changes and additions compared to the original animated films. Some of them are really worth pointing out, and chances are, you might have missed a few, especially if you're not a big Toothless fan or if you haven't seen what I consider one of the best animated trilogies out there. So, without dragging this out, spoiler alert, let's dive right in. Let's talk about the dragons first. The design of the dragons in this live-action adaptation appears to be less cute. One of the reasons I think they did this is because they needed to achieve that level of realism where people could believe that these dragons exist in the real world. But it's not a total makeover. They just made the dragons look real, with reptilian skin like what we could see in real-life animals. The dragons retained their overall design shapes and animalistic behavior. What's new in their designs is the emphasis on the animals they were inspired by. For example, the deadly gnat or stormfly, we can actually see a striking resemblance to a bird's head, like a parrot or a cockatoo, and she also has a noticeable beak-like mouth. I also noticed that Stormfly has two broken spikes in her crown, which we didn't see in the animated version. This is a principle in CGI and VFX industry: imperfection is perfection. This principle reflects the idea that real-world objects and environments are never perfectly symmetrical, clean, or uniform. So in computer graphics, adding small flaws like smudges, scratches, asymmetry, noise, or wear and tear actually makes a CG object look more believable. The monstrous nightmare, or Hookfang, also bears a resemblance to a real-life animal. I can see from his head the face of a crocodile with a combination of snake-like behavior, as his tongue behaves like that of a snake. The hideous Zippleback's head appears to me like that of a viper. It's triangular and forms a little bit of a heart shape. Similar to Hookfang, this one also has snake-like behavior. It hisses too. Gronkle's design is more like a bulldog, a ball-like body with four slimmer horns and a puppy behavior. I also noticed that Gronkle bears a striking resemblance to Woola, a Kala species in Mars, with similar traits of a dog from the 2012 John Carter movie.
He did a lot more than just that.
Now let's talk about Toothless' design. His overall look remains the same as what we've seen from the animated version, but here they added reptilian textures to his face and body to make him look like a real animal. It's also the best thing they did. They brought back everything about Toothless. From his bravery to his funny and playful behavior, such an adorable dragon. And that's what most people love about Toothless. From what I observed, Toothless resembles a combination of multiple real-life animals. His behavior combines that of a cat and a dog. His appearance can be seen as a mix of a Komodo dragon for the limbs and claws, a salamander or newt, specifically, an axolotl, for those ear-like appendages, and a bat, of course, for his wings. They also added a new touch to Toothless' fire-breathing ability that we never saw in the animated version, the Pink Blast. When I saw this in the trailer, I theorized that it might be inspired by the evolved Pink Godzilla design. But actually, it's just his plasma blast at a lesser power. In the plasma intensity spectrum, the color that represents the hottest is blue or white, which describes extremely high energy. In this film, Toothless still possesses that level of energy. However, in this particular shot, the pink plasma that we see is perhaps a low-energy version of his blast, as he is not intending to use it as an offensive attack. Now let's move to the Red Death's design. In the animated film, Red Death is truly not a red-colored dragon. Instead, she's a bluish-gray dragon with small red spots across her body. Those spots only make her look red. Her massive head appears to have a crown-like formation, and she has a huge bump on her nose. On the other hand, the live-action version has a complete makeover of the Red Death while retaining her overall appearance. She's still massive. She still has the jagged spikes on her back as well as the massive rock-like structure at the end of her tail. However, like most of the dragons, Red Death's head was redesigned. She now has a chameleon-looking head with a massive, fully grown horn on top of her nose. They finally made the top of her body completely red instead of just adding red spots. The introduction to Burke is similar to the animated counterpart. The difference is that the Vikings use a dummy sheep to lure the dragons instead of a real one, like we've seen in the animated film. Toothless' first meal scene was one of the most popular interactions between Hiccup and Toothless. I think it's one of the most important parts of their story of friendship. Hiccup learns that he has no teeth at first when Toothless opens his mouth trying to grab the fish, so he gives him the name Toothless. In the live-action adaptation, they did exactly the same thing, which is pretty dang good. The difference I noticed is that in the animated film, Toothless spits out half of the fish and offers it to Hiccup, the tail part. However, in the live-action version, instead of the tail, Toothless offers the head part of the fish. Then we see again the most iconic moment, the touch of trust. This particular scene has been discussed by fans and animators, because of an animation error with Toothless' head, that it leans toward Hiccup's hand too early. However, it turned out to be unique and somehow looked natural, so the director decided to leave it as is. In the live-action adaptation, it's still the same, but I don't think they recreated the same animation mistake. What I observed instead is that Toothless gulps before reaching Hiccup's hand. This suggests that even Toothless, as a dragon, has fear when interacting with humans. Kudos to the entire production team for this. It may not look the same, but it's more dramatic, with emphasis on the emotional feeling of Toothless. We also get to see how they preserved Hiccup's scar in the live-action adaptation, as this is where the second animated film's story is rooted. Probably an early hint for the live-action sequel. When Hiccup is gaining popularity for how he manages to take down every dragon during their test, he is then followed by his friends, confronting and asking how he did it. But what we can notice is the bridge scene. I don't think this scene aimed to copy the animated film because it's different. In the animated film, the bridge scene looks like it connects to separate islands.
I left my axe back in the ring. You guys go on ahead. I'll catch up.
I also spotted a minor change. In the grass scene, in the animated film, Toothless is itching on a grass field where they landed after their failed flight. They remade it in the live-action version. However, instead of grass, they changed it into a field of dandelions, which Toothless gets allergic to and sneezes a lot, not itching. When Astrid finds out that Hiccup is keeping a dragon as a pet, she immediately runs away but is stopped by Hiccup and Toothless flying her away. In the animated film, Toothless hangs Astrid on top of a tree while Hiccup tries to explain to her. In the live-action version, instead of a tree, Astrid ends up being dropped on top of a cliff. I understand why this change was necessary. The director might want to make the scene more relatable to real life. If they brought back the idea of hanging Astrid on a tree, that might be less realistic, since Toothless is large, like a horse, or maybe larger, and no tree could hold that weight, especially at the very tip of it, plus the weight of Astrid and Hiccup. During a montage in Burke's arena, I notice Hiccup is already standing inside, getting ready for his final test. Everyone expects him to kill a dragon, but he refuses. Stoic gets mad and cancels the fight, and the monstrous nightmare gets wild, putting Hiccup in danger. As Hiccup shouts, Toothless hears it and gets alarmed. As if he knows Hiccup is in danger, in the animated film, we only see Toothless struggle to get to Hiccup by landing his claw to escape the cove. In the live-action version, it shows both Hiccup and Toothless' hands. It's a really nice touch and addition to the film, mirroring their struggles, one trying to escape danger, and the other trying to rescue the other. Lastly, the scene where Hiccup frees every dragon for their ride to save Toothless. In the animated film, this happens in bright daylight, as Hiccup assigns each of his friends a dragon to ride. In the live-action version, this happens at night. This makes a lot of sense, since Stoic's voyage departs in the morning, so this must be done at night, when no one is awake, especially the ones left in the village. For me, it's more like a corrected scene rather than a complete change. I also noticed missing scenes and emotional moments in the animated film that the live-action adaptation skips. First is the moment when Hiccup gives Toothless a fish for the first time. In the animated film, as Hiccup enters the forest cove, his shield gets stuck between the rocks. In the live-action version, he smoothly slides through it. And after Hiccup and Toothless' first flight, there's a brief scene in the animated film showing a peaceful moment of them relaxing on a shore during sunset, only to be disturbed by 3 terrible terrors. This also shows Hiccup's realization about the dragons. In the live-action adaptation, that moment is gone. It could have added depth to Hiccup's discoveries about the dragons.
Everything we know about you guys is wrong.
Side gags and jokes within the film were also omitted, like throwing water on a hideous zippleback.
No, Hiccup! Yeah. Oh, come on.
Or Stoic's challenge to his people asking them to look after Hiccup.
Those who stay will look after Hiccup. Yeah, that's more like it.
This was probably a creative choice to adhere to a more serious tone and make it more relatable to real life. I also noticed that the scene where Stoic instinctively realizes they're not facing the real enemy is not present. In the animated film, after they drive away the dragons from their nest, Stoic looks at Toothless. As he watches him, straining to unkind himself, Stoic instinctively senses that it's not over and there's still something inside.
This isn't over! Form your ranks! Hold together!
This particular scene could have highlighted Stoic's Viking instincts and years of experience as the chief of the village if they put this in the live action. What I also noticed in the 2025 live-action adaptation is that there are some opposites. One, in particular, is Gobber the Belch. Gobber, as we know, is an amputee. In the animated film, his left hand is a prosthetic, equipped with an interchangeable tool, while his right foot is replaced with a wooden stick. However, in the live-action adaptation, Gobber is the opposite of his animated counterpart, physically. Instead of having a left prosthetic hand, it's on his right, while his prosthetic foot is on the left. I also spotted the same kind of reversal during Toothless' first meal. In the animated film, after Toothless swallows the whole fish, he approaches Hiccup and coughs up a slimy chunk, the tail part. In the live-action version, Toothless gives him the head instead. Let's talk about the markings and emblems. In the animated film, we don't see significant or noticeable markings throughout. However, in the live-action version, I spotted several markings that could mean something. Let's start with their vessels. What I noticed is that their ships represent the dragons they hunt. The one Stoic rides on symbolizes the deadly natter. I also noticed that some of their shields are marked with dragons. For example, Stoic's shield has the head of a deadly natter, and Hiccup's shield bears the mark of a monstrous nightmare, which kind of foreshadows Hiccup's final test. Stoic's throne or chair also has a deadly natter head on it. The way this dragon keeps showing up in their markings and statues makes me think the deadly natter might be the strongest dragon they've captured so far. Another detail I noticed is on Stoic's armor. In the animated film, his shoulder clasp has a face on it, probably meant to represent Odin, their spiritual figure. But in the live-action version, it's different. There's a dragon carved in a circular pattern instead. I don't think I've seen this specific dragon before, especially not in the first animated film. I'll get back to that in a second. The live-action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon does an incredible job of making the dragons appear realistic, balancing lifelike textures and expressions without making them look too harsh, terrifying, or horror-like. The designs are detailed yet still familiar and appealing to fans of the animated trilogy. However, I noticed that a couple of dragons seem to be introduced a little too early in the story. One example is the dragon I was talking earlier that is carved into Stoic's shoulder clasp, which appears to resemble a Rumblehorn. This dragon species wasn't introduced until How to Train Your Dragon 2, in the animated timeline, and we see it in that movie. Stoic rides a Rumblehorn. From this moment alone, this could be more than just a scene. It might be a deliberate sign or even a quiet confirmation that a live-action sequel is in the works, one where we'll see Stoic the Vast ride a Rumblehorn once again. Aside from this decorative carving, we also briefly glimpse what appears to be a Rumblehorn alongside a Skrill in the dragon's nest, and then again during the escape scene when the Vikings arrive. Both of these dragon species, Rumblehorn and Skrill, are part of the sequel films and were never seen in the first animated movie. So why are they already present here? Their early appearance could be intentional. It might serve as an Easter egg for longtime fans, or possibly a hint that the live-action adaptation is already laying groundwork for a sequel. The film also has some new additions that make it more logically fair, like the scoreboard used by Gothi to track each trainee's progress during dragon training. The scoreboard appears to be in the form of an abacus. An abacus is an ancient counting tool made of a frame with rods and movable beads, used to perform basic arithmetic operations. We never saw Gothi use a scoreboard in the animated film. Adding this in the live-action version just makes the judging system more fair and clear. I also noticed the addition of a new creature in the film. When Stoic and his crew pass through fog-choked shoals and jagged sea stacks, there's a mysterious sea creature that looks like a dragon with sharp, fin-like horns. However, I'm not sure if this is a water-type dragon or an ice dragon like the Bewilder Beast. Leave a comment if you know anything about this creature. So, that's it. These are my thoughts on the live-action How to Train Your Dragon. It may not be as emotionally gripping or dramatically powerful as the original animated version, but I can honestly say, it's the best live-action remake ever made so far. And the score, transcendent, love it so much, it gives me goosebumps every time it hits the climax. Seriously, Disney could learn a thing or two from this. Stick to the heart of the source material, add a few creative touches here and there, but don't try to reinvent the whole story. That's exactly where Disney tends to go wrong. Before I wrap this up, I just want to mention something quick about Toothless face. There's something about it that reminded me of Mikey from the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's a slight humanoid quality to it that might feel a little off if you're used to his more expressive, cat-like look in the animated films. It's subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you noticed anything I didn't bring up. What are your thoughts on this live-action remake? Did it meet your expectations or fall short in any way? I'm really curious to hear different opinions. That's all from me. I'll end the video here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.